I lost my memory. Opening my eyes, all I saw was white, with the smell of disinfectant lingering in the air. This smell was not unfamiliar to me. I've been smelling it since I was young. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart, causing the mist in the breathing machine to rise. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Why am I in the hospital again? This troublesome body. My face felt itchy, and I was about to scratch it, but I found my hand tightly held by someone. This person's hand was warm, fingers long and strong, tightly intertwined with mine. I carefully touched it, furrowing my brows more tightly. This wasn't Ron's hand. Feeling shocked, I quickly pulled my hand back, but it was held even tighter. Lowering my eyes, all I could see was the top of someone's head. It was a man with dark black hair. He was asleep. As I tried to free my hand, the man also sensed the movement. He slowly opened his eyes, still drowsy, with dark circles underneath. When he noticed my finger moving, I felt his body stiffen. The man slowly looked towards me. "What a handsome face!" I exclaimed. After a moment of silence, I examined him more carefully. There was a glimmer of water in the man's eyes. After a moment of excitement, he finally calmed down. His expressionless face looked slightly serious and intimidating, with a cold complexion. "Nikki, I'll call the doctor," he said in a deep voice, with a hint of choking. I looked at him bewildered as he walked away. I went through everyone in my mind. No results. Wait, who's this handsome guy? The doctor quickly came in. A crowd of people surrounded me, and after the examination, they quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Someone said, "Mr. Stark, Miss Nikki has passed this critical moment. Once the blood clot in her brain dissipates, she will be able to recover her memory." The man, dressed in a suit, regained some color in his pale face. He turned to look at me, his eyes filled with a sense of relief after surviving a disaster. I blinked, smiled slightly in response. After the doctor left, the room fell silent. The man moved slowly, but with determination. He sat by my bed and awkwardly revealed a smile. It was evident that he rarely smiled, so his expression seemed strange. His broad shoulders slightly slumped. He gently held my hand as if handling delicate porcelain. In a low voice, he murmured, "Nikki, I'm so glad." I didn't know what makes him glad, as he never continued. The touch of his hand made me uncomfortable. I didn't recognize him, but he clearly knew me, and it seemed like we had a close relationship. The breathing machine on my face had been removed. I moved my lips slightly, but my voice was very soft, almost a whisper. The man noticed and immediately stood up, bending down towards me. He smelled strongly of disinfectant, indicating he had been in the hospital for a long time. "Nikki, what's wrong?" His dark eyes looked into mine, asking with extreme patience. "Ron, where is he?" I asked with difficulty, my throat dry. The man's hand paused. His handsome face slightly turned towards me, facing me directly. "What?" A hint of confusion flashed in his clear eyes. Ronald Christie, where is he?" Adjusting my breathing, I raised my tone, enunciating each word clearly. My gaze was so persistent it bordered on obsession. The man was completely stunned. "Ronald Christie is my stepbrother, 4 years older than me. When I was 6 years old, he was brought into my home by his mother. At that time, his face still had baby fat, looking handsome with clear features, always carrying a gentle smile. I loved to cling to him, always calling out brother nonstop. Every time, he would patiently respond to me. When I was 13, my dad and his mother died in a car accident on a rainy night. In just a few days, the inheritance was divided among relatives. I became a kicked-around ball. No one wanted to adopt me. As for Ronald, no one wanted him either. I lived as a dependent for a whole year. It wasn't until I entered high school and needed tuition fees that my uncle completely tore his face and kicked me out of the house. It was Ronald who took me back home. He was 18 that year. He gently patted my head and said, "Nikki, I will support you to study." At that time, I didn't know that he had dropped out of school for a year, because he was trying to gather the tuition fees for me. He lied to me that he was attending a local university. I believed him. The rented one-bedroom apartment was bright, with a small bedroom. When the sun came out, the sunlight would fall on my soft bedding. Ronald slept on the sofa in the living room, and when he slept, his handsome brows would furrow slightly, as if even in his dreams, there were many helpless things. In the winter, the weather was cold, and the rented apartment was so cold that one would want to wrap up in several blankets. Only my bedroom had an air conditioner. When I came home on weekends, the bedroom was always warm, but Ronald had to sleep in the cold living room. I suggested that we could sleep together, but he disagreed. That was our biggest argument, or maybe just my one-sided crying. "It's okay, Ron, it's really okay," I choked, feeling heartbroken. Ronald smiled helplessly, gently wiping away my tears with his hand. Then he shook his head firmly. Finally, I stubbornly stayed on the sofa and refused to leave, showing that unless he agreed, I would also sleep in the living room, which made him step into the bedroom. I slept on the bed, and he slept on the floor. That was his bottom line. The warm air from the air conditioner filled the room. I sweated in the thick and soft quilt. The cold floor, thin sheets. Ronald turned carefully, afraid of waking me up. I lay on the edge of the bed, gazing at Ronald's handsome face in the cool moonlight, from his slightly furrowed brows to his straight nose, and then his thin lips. His popularity had spread widely in high school. He was tall and straight, with delicate features, a long and fair neck, always wearing a faint smile on his face, gentle and warm. Because of his young sister's identity, I received a lot of special treatment. But at this moment, looking at Ronald with closed eyes, my feelings changed. Not like family, but not like love either. It seemed like a mix of attachment and uneasiness. I sat up quietly in the dark night. When my feet touched the thin sheet, I felt a chill. It was so cold. Ronald noticed. He opened his eyes and met my gaze. In the silence, I patted the soft bed, half threateningly saying, "Where you sleep, I'll sleep there too." The stubbornness in my eyes made him sigh lightly. He slept on the edge of the bed, risking falling off when he turned over. I felt the warmth beside me and slowly closed my eyes. The next day, Ronald bought a thick blanket and placed it at the edge of the bed. We spent 3 winters like this. He was still my brother, but I knew some feelings had long been growing wildly in my heart, tightly entwining Ronald. Without God, I will become crazy. He was my God, that man said. He said I really like him. I have been pursuing him for a long time. I don't believe it at all. It's impossible, I weakly but firmly denied. I can't possibly like someone else. I looked up at him, my eyes flashing with anger. The man's face instantly turned as white as a sheet. His lips moved slightly, but in the end, he didn't say a word. There was a commotion at the door. I looked up, filled with anticipation. A woman in a goose-yellow dress came into my sight. I lowered my eyes disappointedly. Why hasn't my brother come to see me yet? The woman saw me. Her eyes reddened instantly. She quickened her pace to my bedside, as if holding my hand tightly, as if she had survived a disaster. "Nikki, you're finally awake?" she exclaimed excitedly. I looked at her confusedly, hesitated for a while, and said, "I'm sorry, but do we know each other?" A hint of sadness flashed in the woman's eyes, but she quickly smiled. She gently and slowly said, "I'm Rena Collins, your good friend." After a pause, she pointed to the man and said, "He's Dean Stark, your." After hesitating for a while, she added, "He's also your friend." I breathed a sigh of relief in my heart, but also felt a little angry at Dean Stark for playing such a joke. "Do you know where Ronald is?" I asked directly. "Why hasn't he come to see me yet?" Rena's smile stiffened for a moment. She fell silent for a while, unconsciously exerting force on my hand. I couldn't help but start to make some bad guesses, my heart beating faster and faster. My face turned pale. Rena visibly panicked. The man named Dean Stark did too. He strode to my side, reaching out to grab my hand. I quickly dodged, gripping Rena's hand tightly, and asked, "Is something wrong with Ronald? Please tell me." The hand that was suspended in midair curled slightly, stayed for a few seconds, and then retracted dejectedly. Clearly, I was the patient, but I felt like Dean's face was even paler than mine. "Nikki, no, Ronald is fine," Rena reassured me quickly. She slightly bent down, speaking with an unusually firm tone. "He's just working as a sailor at sea now, and will only be back in half a year." After a moment of hesitation, she said, "I just remembered that you had always reminded me not to tell your brother that you were hospitalized again, so I was lost in thought. If you really miss him, I can lend you my phone to make a call." I let go of Rena's hand, and after a long silence, in a hoarse voice, I asked, "Where is my phone?" "It's broken," she replied quickly. I silently watched her trembling hand hidden behind her back, forcing a smile. "How long have I been asleep?" I asked again. Rena instinctively tightened her grip on her hand, as if seeking strength from her palm. "You've been asleep for a week." She lightly pursed her lips and smiled. I didn't look at her smiling face anymore. I turned to look out the window. The warm sunlight clung over the windowsill, illuminating the swirling dust in the air clearly. I remembered the morning when the college entrance exam scores came out. I fell asleep because I couldn't stay awake, and when I woke up, I saw the slender figure sitting in front of the laptop. That was the back-to-school gift he gave me. Surrounded by darkness, the blue light from the computer screen made my brother's handsome profile exceptionally clear. He tightly pressed his lips, repeatedly trying to open that website. So focused, he didn't even notice when I woke up. The time showed 6 o'clock. The moonlight outside was cold and clear. He stayed up all night. A week. It turns out it's been this long. "Nikki," Rena nervously called me, her eyelashes trembling with tension. I smiled at her and said, "I'll contact him after I'm discharged from the hospital." After a pause, I added in almost a whisper, "Tell him that I've been too busy lately, but I'll go see him after I'm done." Rena visibly breathed a sigh of relief. "Okay. After you get better, it's not too late to call him." After Rena left, the ward was left with Dean Stark. He didn't say anything, just quietly looked at me, as if trying to see into my heart, to knock on that door. "Do you have something else to do?" I hesitantly asked. "I want to sleep now." Dean lowered his eyes at my words. The ward fell silent. I lay flat on the hospital bed, staring at the white ceiling. I've always had poor health since I was young, with a heart condition, unable to do vigorous exercise. Since Ronald came to my house, he has always been by my bedside. Dad is busy. I never asked him to accompany me. I thought I didn't need anyone's company. It wasn't until Ronald appeared that I realized I do need someone's company. Lying alone in the hospital bed is fundamentally different from being cared for and looked after by someone. Who is Ronald? Just as I was lost in memories, Dean suddenly spoke up. He walked to my bedside at some point, his tall figure slightly bending, his eyes dark. I looked up at him, a gentle curve forming at the corner of my lips. He is the person I love the most, I said earnestly and lovingly. He is the best person in the world. Tears flickered in Dean's eyes. He moved his lips slightly. And me? I didn't hear what he said clearly, looking at him in confusion. What? I asked. He didn't repeat it. Tears flashed in his eyes suddenly. I was surprised, thinking I had seen it wrong. Upon closer inspection, those deep eyes no longer revealed any emotions. He just stood there until I felt drowsy. As I drifted off to sleep, I vaguely felt a gaze on my face, but that hand remained suspended in midair. Someone lightly tugged at my blanket. In a moment, deliberately light footsteps gradually faded away. The door closed. As the evening approached, the sky was filled with red clouds by the window. Rena pushed open my door. "Nikki, your phone is fixed," she said with a smile. I stared at the old phone in her hand, carefully took it from her. It was a gift Ronald bought for me when I got into North City University. It's already 5 years old. "Nikki, you can try calling your brother. The doctor said you can be discharged," Rena said in a relaxed tone, but her fidgeting fingers exposed her nervousness. I pretended to focus on the shadowy silhouette on the phone wallpaper and forced a smile. "Can I?" "Of course," Rena said. I opened the contact list page, my finger hovering over the option for my brother. The air seemed to be filled with a tense atmosphere for some reason. I pressed the call button. Almost instantly, the call went through. It was as if Ronald was waiting on the other end. I placed the phone to my ear, breathing lightly. There was a deep breath on the other end. Both ends were brewing words they wanted to say to each other. "Hello? Is it Ron?" I pursed my lips and said softly. An unbearable silence quietly filled the air. Just when I couldn't stand it and started to panic, he spoke, his voice hoarse. "Yes, Nikki, it's Ronald." It was Ronald's voice. It was Ronald's gentle and patient voice. Tears surged out of my eyes like madness, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wipe them away. "Ron, I miss you so much," I said with a choked voice. The Ron who had suffered so much for me, the gentle and wise Ron, was now so far away from me, so far that I couldn't find his figure no matter what. "Nikki, be good and wait for me to come back, okay?" He coaxed gently on the phone, his tone trembling. I nodded repeatedly, crying uncontrollably. Rena gently embraced me, patting my back to comfort me. My hot tears fell on her neck. Her eyes were getting red too. "Nikki," she kept calling. I hugged her tightly in grievance, feeling a sigh of relief in my heart. I thought Ronald was dead. Turns out Rena didn't lie to me. After I was discharged, Rena took me to a strange villa. The yard was filled with large patches of white and purple eustoma, blooming vigorously. I knew their flower language, undying longing. "Nikki, you will live with me," Rena said gently with a smile. After a pause, she added, "Your brother will also live here when he comes home." I looked at the eustoma swaying in the wind and smiled lightly. A black Bentley was parked outside. It had been following us since we left the hospital. I couldn't make sense of many things in my mind. Dean Stark was one of them. As Rena pushed me into the villa, my heart suddenly tightened, and I subconsciously frowned. Some fragmented memories rushed into my mind. I seemed to see a woman, forcing a smile as she cautiously approached a man. The man's face was not clear. I only heard his cold voice saying, "Nikki Phillips, don't you have any self-respect?" The woman's pale cheeks instantly shed a tear. She anxiously wiped it away, her eyes turning red. "I'm sorry, She didn't finish her sentence. She just silently lowered her head, looking lonely. It was me. I was somewhat surprised at myself, to have stooped so low. The man looked down at the woman with disdain. He walked straight to the door, avoiding the person in front of him. With a loud bang, I shuddered involuntarily. The man slammed the door shut and left. I saw myself squatting on the ground, crying so sadly. She was calling out for her brother. I silently tightened my grip on the wheelchair's armrest, feeling full of unease. Why did I call someone who wasn't Ronald my brother? I didn't understand.